So welcome back to the Happiness series and today one of part 3. Now in part 3 the focus is very much on a sense of enjoyment and how that adds to our overall feeling of contentment. It may sound really obvious, but having a genuine sense of joy is actually not all that common. We tend to experience it every now and again in life, but to have stability in that sense of joy is quite unusual. As with the other qualities, it's not because joy leaves us in any way. It's more that we get involved with other patterns of thinking, with other feelings that sort of get in the way of that feeling of joy. Normally those are feelings of envy or jealousy, perhaps a tendency to criticize, to judge, to compare. It might be a feeling of desire or greed, of wanting something else. And all of those things basically act as barriers from us experiencing that innate sense of joy. So the next 10 days are going to focus on how we can remind ourselves of what that feels like within ourselves, but also more than that. And this is a really important part of part 3. How we can start to have a genuine sense of happiness and joy for other people and their success. So if you just take a moment to think about it, when you hear good news about somebody close to you, maybe it's a really close friend or a family member, maybe a genuine sense of excitement that you feel for them, you experience for them, you're really happy that they've got what they wanted, that they're happy as a result. And now if you think how that compares to maybe somebody at work, maybe it's somebody who's competing for a similar job position or something like that. And let's say they get the job. How do we feel about it? Well, for most people, it'd be very challenging actually in that situation to wish that person well, to be happy for that person. So we tend to discriminate a little bit as to whom we feel a sense of joy towards. We find it quite easy for people close to us, but more difficult the further away we get. And in fact, for many people, even to feel a sense of joy for oneself can be quite challenging. And there are many, many people who say they've lost touch with that sense of fun and playfulness, that quality, which they know is there, but they're just not too sure how to experience or find. So, as I say, over the next 10 days, we're going to be focusing on this idea of developing a sense of joy in oneself, but also wishing that for others as well. Now, the technique itself is very similar to the one we've been using throughout the Happiness series. So I won't be disturbing you too much with lots of new information during the technique itself. There might be just a few subtle changes, so still being aware, listening out for those. But to begin with, you can just set yourself up in the usual way. Eyes open. Nice soft gaze. And then when you're ready, just taking some nice big deep breaths now. And just closing the eyes with the next out breath. As you just settle into the space around you. And just bring the focus back to the feelings in the body now as you just scan down, noticing both the physical sensations and also the overall emotional quality or tone of mind. So as you begin this new practice today, just pausing to be clear, to remind yourself of what your intention is in this particular practice, on this particular day. And just taking a moment to reflect on how that could benefit people around you in your life. And now just shifting the attention back to the body, back to that movement of breath in the body. Just picking it up wherever you feel it most clearly. And just staying with that for the next couple of minutes now. So as you continue to follow the breath now, remember in just the same way as you have done with the last couple of techniques, just imagine that pinprick of light, middle of the chest, middle of the body. So this is an innate quality. Remember those inherent aspects of brightness, of clarity, of warmth. And in this particular technique, all of that infused with a genuine sense of enjoyment, joy, whatever word works best for you. And that's a sense of enjoyment for yourself, but also for people around you as well, both near and far. So in just the same way as you've been practicing, just watching as that spreads a sense of enjoyment throughout the body and beyond the body into the space around you, and then further and further away until the mind simply can't imagine a bigger space. And remember, as you're watching this, to actually feel that experience of enjoyment in oneself. And as part of the visualization, you can even imagine other people experiencing that wave of joy that spreads outwards in every direction. So just have a go at that now. Still aware of the breath, still aware of the movement of the breath. Just imagining that wave spreading out in every direction. And when it feels as though that space has got as big as it could possibly get, just letting go of the image, letting go of any focus on the breath, and just allowing the mind to be free. And now just bringing the attention back once again to that contact between the body and the chair, the body and the floor. So you just start to reawaken those physical senses, becoming more aware of the space around you as you just gently open the eyes again. As always, just pausing just for a moment, noticing how you feel, but also pausing for long enough just to make that intention to be mindful, to be present, and to re-experience that sense of enjoyment throughout the day. And when you've done that, you can just sit back in the chair. So, in many ways, the exercise, the technique itself, of course, is very similar. And you may well experience a similar sensation or a similar sort of feeling as you're doing the exercise. But in other ways, it's quite different. The quality that we're talking about is quite different. For example, we can imagine people perhaps being free from difficulty or suffering, but actually imagining them kind of having all the things they want might be sort of more challenging. And of course, if we've been lost in a spiral or a cycle of thought or feeling ourselves for a long time, which is not a particularly happy one that doesn't sort of encompass a sense of joy, then it might take a little while to remind yourself of what that feels like. So that's where we're going to begin really in part 3, is just reminding yourself what that feels like. And there are lots of things I'd like you to do as we go throughout the next 10 days. But one thing in particular right at the start I'd like to say is if you can find something in your free time, and of course you may not have a lot of free time, this only need be sort of 5 or 10 minutes, but if you can find something that you know you enjoy, something that reawakens that sense of fun, of playfulness, whatever it might be, if you can see if you can find a time in the day to do that. It might be as simple as watching a really funny comedy that you know that makes you laugh. It might be joining a class and going to, I don't know, dance or to play a sport, whatever it might be. Something, though, that reminds you of that sense of enjoyment. And if you can do that, then I think it will just help with this whole process of feeling a greater sense of joy for those around you as well.